Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pursuit Podcast. I'm your host, Grayson Garvin. Today's episode is my interview with my friend and former MLB All-Star and World Series champion, Ben Zobrist. Please listen for Ben's comments on how his life and experience in baseball was tangible and measured in every way, and now how his definition of success is far different. So without further ado, let's get to it. Ben Zobrist, good afternoon. Welcome to the Pursuit Podcast. I'm stoked about this conversation today.
Thanks, Grayson. Man, I'm happy to be here with one of my buddies and former player as well. So thanks for having me.
Well, yeah, we definitely played. I think I'm half the baseball player you were, but I'm really excited to talk a little bit of shop and hear a little bit more about your story. Again, there's so much, as we both know, that goes into what's required to play at a high level, and then also to, mentally and emotionally what it takes to segue out of the game. And I want to, really try to double click on a lot of those things, because I think for a lot of people, there's not an understanding of what's required to kind of be where you are right now. And I think that's really important. So thanks for coming on and spending a little bit of time with us.
Absolutely, man. I love talking about this, and transitions are so important. Obviously the performance when you're playing is all encompassing, but you got to find a way after that. Life is more than just learning as a young person to perform in certain realms. And yeah, I love talking about this because I'm very passionate about it. So excited wherever this conversation goes, I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Amen. I love it. I love it. Well, again, a lot of people probably do know you as, again, Ben Zobrist, the World Series champion in multiple years. But, for those of us that don't, and for those of us that may not know the totality of your story, give us a 30,000 foot view of Ben Zobrist, where you come from and kind of where we find you today.
Sure. Yeah. I grew up in Illinois, a small town kid. Didn't have any college scholarship offers. I always loved sports. So I played all different sports growing up. No college scholarship offers when I graduated high school. Happened upon, from my coach's suggestion, happened upon a tryout where a college coach named Elliot Johnson from Olivet Nazarene University saw me. That got me playing baseball past high school level. And as I grew and developed and applied myself at the amateur level, continued to get better. Eventually transferred to a Division I school, Dallas Baptist in Texas. Got drafted in 2004 out of that school as a senior draft, 23 years old, and just kept working my way up. The minor league system, and it's a very competitive environment, and just kind of did well at each stop, and they just kept gradually moving me up, and then until found myself traded to the Tampa Bay Devil Rays at the time in 2006. From Double A, they sent me to Triple A, and within a couple of weeks, they were calling me up to the major leagues. So that was my first experience in the major leagues as a professional at that level, and didn't do well. I really stunk the first about year of going up and down between the major leagues and Triple A, and eventually got enough opportunity and continued to develop that I got an opportunity to play at the major league level consistently, and started to make a career of that. Got to start every day, made a couple all-star teams, went to a couple World Series, won the World Series with Kansas City Royals and the Chicago Cubs in 2015 and 2016, and
Broke the curse.
retired in 2019. Yeah, retired in 2019, and since then I've just been learning about post baseball life. Obviously, we got connected recently through this nonprofit that I started called Champion Forward. Grayson, you've graciously been on our board and been a huge important part of building a young organization with us. And so you've donated your time and been really a huge blessing to us through that, your services and the ability to kind of give us, what we've needed at this time. But yeah, I've kind of led the vision there. And I've also gotten involved in some other mental health kind of things since baseball. But yeah, if I had to look back, I've had a, really amazing experience through vocationally and whatnot. But more important than any of that is my family. As you know, I'm a single dad of 3 kids. Um, and my kids are at the ages of, they're 14, 12, and 8 right now. And so they're, in the thick of their activities. And so I'm, half my time is spent just chasing them around all the time. So, the other half of the time I'm finding my passions and pursuits outside of the game.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So I think it's important to, again, because a lot of people that know you for all of your marketed success on national TV and everything else. A lot of people may not have known that you didn't have any college scholarship offers right out of the gate. When was it for you that you really knew it's like, I'm pretty good at this and I think I could potentially make a career out of it? Was it in college? Was it not until you got to pro ball? When was that point for you?
Yeah, I think the first time it occurred to me was my freshman year of college, and I was not playing necessarily. We were kind of in fall ball. We had finished our fall workouts, and talking to other players on the team, there was a senior guy who was an All American. He's the head coach at Dallas Baptist University, Dan Heathner, and he was a senior on this team when I was a freshman, and so I was learning from Dan and trying to learn. He was a great mentor, but Dan was getting looks from professional teams at the time. And I'm like, well, shoot, if I'm playing with guys that potentially might have the chance to play professionally, why can't I do it? And I'll never forget because I was just pitching at the time. One of my buddies on the team was like, dude, come on, man, you're not going to make it to professional baseball. And I was like, why not? Why couldn't I? So I kind of almost took that as a challenge of, you know what? Like I can work harder than anybody else. And you never know. Like, that was kind of when it started occurring. Like, hey, if I work hard, this is helping pay for my school, which is amazing. But if I work hard enough, you never know. Maybe I'll get a chance to play professionally at some level. It
I
certainly
love it.
never occurred to me though that I could play in the major leagues at the time. That was beyond my wildest dreams when I was a freshman in college. There's no doubt.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, and then walk us through too a little bit of the two things. Like walk us through a little bit of the minor leagues and what that's like. I think it, it's funny. I think that as funny of a movie as it is, I think Bull Durham actually does a decent job of depicting just like the craziness of minor league baseball. Like it's just bananas. So walk us through a little bit of what your minor league experience was like, and then walk us through a brief snippet of what it's like to play in the big leagues.
Sure. Yeah. What most people think of in a professional environment, the minor leagues now it's improved a lot from the time when I played back in '04 to like '07, '08 when I was in the minor league. But wow, yeah, it for a lot of guys that played Division I college baseball, it was definitely a step down in accommodations. Like a guy like you who played at Vanderbilt, you went to the minor leagues. I'm sure were like shocked at how bad some of the conditions.
You
You know,
felt like you were roughing it a little bit.
yeah. I mean, but I'll say this: that organizations were focused on development. They were focused on like, hey, if you can make it through this, and and you can continue to develop and play better. Like if you don't like it, play better. That was like a saying that we heard a lot. You don't like the conditions, play better because it's better when you go higher in the organization, right? And it did.
That's
It
right.
gradually was a little bit better. Like in rookie ball, you're eating like you go in from batting practice, you've been sweating for 3 or 4 hours doing extra work, and they got like one jar of peanut butter, a loaf of bread, some jelly. Like you're lucky if you get the peanut butter and the jelly on the sandwich, because other guys would crush it and be gone before you get to it, right? So I mean, there was at the time you didn't have much, and you're rooming with multiple guys in your apartment, just trying to get by. We were making, I think, $250 every 2 weeks. That was our paycheck coming in, and so it was really tough. But what's so crazy is as soon as I made my way through the ranks, and as soon as you make it to the major leagues, you're immediately in the major leagues looking at, at least 10 times the paycheck. I went to my first paycheck, I think was $15,000. I literally paid off my college loans in two paychecks that I had, and there was nothing left to pay. Right. So I was super lucky. I didn't have a lot of college stuff, loan stuff, but the fact that it's such a drastic environment. You go to the major leagues and everything is taken care of for you. The best food, you got the best accommodations, nice hotels, nice stadiums, playing in front of a lot of people. And it really is a shocking difference between the minor league and the major league system. what was the conditions, right? But I think to a certain regard, you kind of learn that none of that really matters. What matters is, are you playing well on the field? If you're not playing well on the field, it doesn't matter because you're not going to be there very long. You're just there for, a short period of time. So everything is about numbers all the time. What kind of numbers are you putting up? It's really hard not to have your identity so attached to your performance on a daily basis. So, I mean, I definitely struggled like every minor league guy. I was fortunate though I was a little older than some of the minor league guys. So I was like a little more steady in regard to my work ethic, and I knew myself a little bit more as a player. Um, but there was still development to be had, even at 23, 24, 25. And AAA and the major leagues, they're just different levels. Like you got guys that are really, really good at what they do, and they've been doing it for a long time at those levels. In professional side of things. So there's a lot of adaptation that has to happen and growth, even as a professional, once you get to those levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you just said something that I really want to focus on. And I know that you've done a lot of work around this. And this is something that's it's true in my story as well. We've talked about this is that the fact when, in some cases, people know you or most people know you as the baseball player. And in sports, your performance is essentially as good as what you did yesterday. And that's really it. And that's, again, that's really the way that you're going to continue to put
Yeah.
food on the table. As you stepped away from the game, what was that process like for you when, as we've discussed, it becomes really, really hard for your identity to not in some way, shape, or form be wrapped up in what you did, not necessarily who you are?
And there's no way to fully uh stay or keep those separate. I mean, because you're doing something, so much of your day is surrounded around it, and you're focusing on your body all the time, as and your body is your job. It's impossible to not allow some of your identity to be wrapped up in that. And I would say what makes it even harder as an athlete is this isn't something like, oh, you retire from a 10-year career from 22 to 32 and then you retire. You're retiring. If you're 32, how old were you when you were done playing? How old were you? 20,
28, 27,
28. What?
maybe?
It's like, what year did you start playing? Right, 3 or 4 years old, you started playing that game. So it's like you're retiring from a 22-year career, 23-year career, not a 20, not a 4 or 5 year career at that point. And that's kind of what I realized is this has been such a part of my life that I have to learn how to actually function without this in my life anymore. And that was a that there's a grieving process to that to a certain degree. Like I'm not going to be this person anymore. I've got to let that part of me go. I mean, you can still compete at a recreational level doing various things, but definitely not going to get the same adrenaline high that you've had your whole life when you're like, it's mano y mano, your best versus their best. You're not going to get that on a daily basis. And things in a regular job are a lot more nuanced, and it's a lot more about relationships and building a network of people that you want to, accomplish a larger mission with. Right. So I think it's just a lot different. Sports are a zero sum game. That's what we love about them. We love the fact that it's like at the end of the day, did I win or did I lose? Was I good or was I bad? Sometimes you just can't know that. You can't know it as a parent, or you can't know it as a, financial advisor. Like you actually, you have to wait and see how it plays out over a long period of time. That makes success a lot tougher to pursue. As opposed to in the sports realm, it's very clear cut.
Yeah. No, that's you. It's so right. And that's one of the things that I loved about baseball specifically. And there are a few things about this in sports, but the pitcher versus hitter dynamic to me is so cool because there's not a lot of other relationships in sports where it is mano y mano, your best versus their best. The pitcher versus hitter relationship and dynamic was really fun. And that speaks to what you're saying. It's like you get this it's almost like a euphoric high in those competitive moments when it's like, all right, bow up. This is what it's you versus me. And, again, if I lose, like it's only on me. But to your point, it's like, yeah, as you step away from the game, life doesn't, and in some ways, it's a good thing that life doesn't work like that every day. I think otherwise it would just be exhausting. Um, but going back to that point too, that you mentioned about success being very tangible in the game, it's a great segue to how do you define success today? Because success means different things to different people, and everybody views it a little bit differently. It was pretty clear how success was going to be defined in professional baseball, right? Yes, it's defined by a lot like failure, like you're still really good if you fail 70% of the time. But now for you as a data three, you know, kind of endeavoring in a lot of different things now, how do you define success for yourself now and looking forward?
I think success for me now it looks a lot more like a direction than it does a destination.
Mm.
And I think sometimes it feels off. Sometimes it feels like I'm just, a couple degrees off this way or that way. And then sometimes it feels like I literally going in the complete wrong direction, right? And I've got to just make a U-turn. But I think the way that I I guess defining it is tougher to do than at least at least thinking about it. When I think about success, it has a lot more to do with relationships. It has a lot more to do with how I feel, the fulfillment. Do I feel fulfilled? It also has a lot to do with energy. Do I have energy in the direction that I'm going? Do I have a lot of hope in the future? Is this something that I feel like I'm uniquely gifted to be doing and going this direction? It has a lot more to do with my identity. I think that is inborn and has less to do with the role that I'm particularly living out that particular day. And I say that to people a lot is your role and the realm in which you're doing things have a lot less to do with purpose and identity than I think if you're actually living in purpose. Because if you're living in your purpose and it doesn't matter, the role is just it's gonna be, hey, this is Ben's way of doing this particular role. This is Grayson's way of doing this particular role. We were baseball players as far as role goes for a while in our early adult life. But that was just a rule. The way that you did that was unique to you. And the way that I did that was unique to me. And I think that it's a process of growth and development, figuring out how do I fulfill this role? And how am I going to feel energized to go accomplish the thing that my job tells me I need to accomplish for it to look like success? Because I might go win the championship, or I might go get the big sale for my company. But at the end of the day, if I don't feel fulfilled doing that, if I don't feel energized by that, if I'm not doing that with people that I love and connect with, it's probably not in my purpose. It's just a job I'm doing. It's
Yeah.
just getting a paycheck, and it's something I might even be good at it. It doesn't mean it's the way what I was created to do in this world. And I think the more I talk to people, the more I hear, especially men between the ages of 35 and 45, feel a sense of like, I got to find that thing. I have warriored and I've gone and I've crushed it in this particular job, but I do not feel fulfilled in it anymore. They might have felt fulfilled it originally because it was giving them that competitive high, but it ran out. Now they're not fired up by it anymore. It's like, yeah, I know how to do this, but it's not really giving me that sense of fulfillment at the end of the day. And really, what do we really want when we come back from our jobs? You want to feel energized walking into your house with your kids so that you have the energy to parent, the energy to like give of yourself in your community and things outside of what's just earning you a paycheck. And that's where I'm finding a lot of identity and purpose when I talk to people.
It's huge. It also speaks, I think, to a process versus outcome orientation or mindset. I think that's also really important because I think one thing that I think people that strive for success or would say that they're driven, I think probably a fear that they have is they have this North Star, right? Of, I want to attain X. And the fear is that you attain X and that, to your point, you're not fulfilled. There's not purpose there. And faith is really important to both of us. And I think that we both, would agree that there's a deeper purpose with our relationship with Christ that makes a lot of this endeavoring and this purpose meaningful. But I think if you're solely focused again on attaining X, whatever X is, if that's the end all be all, it's going to fall pretty flat pretty quickly.
Yeah, it can't be that. If that's all that it is, I mean, it may drive you for a while. And I always had that carrot when I played ball to go grab it. Go get this, go get that. At first at first when you're in college, it's like, hey, could I be a professional? Maybe I can. And then you go get it, and you're like, wow, I'm a professional. Then it's, could I make it to double A? Could I make it to the big leagues? It's like, well, I finally made it. I've arrived, but that's never enough, right? Because then it's like, I got to stay here, and it's like, oh, I stayed here. I got the contract. Whoa, amazing. Like, that's the next thing. And it's like, well, can I be an all-star? Wow, I became an all-star, but that's not enough ever either. And, you go into the next thing. It's like World Series. Let's go win a World Series. I won a couple of them. At the end of the day, you can keep trying to hit those marks. But if that is the goal, you're always going to have something's going to feel empty at the end. It has to be attached to something greater than an outcome. Like you said, it has to be attached to something that, like you said, is process oriented. It's focused on, this is the experience I want to have as I'm aimed in this particular direction. And when you know that you're heading in that direction, I like to say it's still not going to ultimately feel like everything is all in place. And I don't want to give people this false idea that when you are living it in your purpose, that everything's going to be great. Like, I think there's a part of life that is always going to feel somewhat incomplete this side of heaven. And that's where faith comes in for me. Cause it's like, I know I'm not expecting everything to ever be perfect. If I think that it's ever going to be in that perfect space, I'm probably going to, um, be disappointed, and not be grateful, because we know that to be happy in your life, gratitude has a lot to do with that. Well, I won't be grateful because I'll always feel like, well, it's just not there yet. I just haven't perfected it. I got to go get something else. At some level, you got to be able to keep driving towards in a direction at the same time as saying, wow, am I grateful for everything I get to experience on a daily basis. And if I feel that way, that sure feels like a successful way to live to me. It's not the end all be all. Like, ultimately, I hope for something even greater at the end of my life, through Christ. But I feel like in the meantime, he's given me so much purpose here in fulfilling those roles, not to be this perfect role, but to aim in a certain direction that feels like I am living the way that I was created to live. I'm doing the things that I was created to do. I'm loving the people I was created to love. And that feels really good.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you articulated all of those things. And I want to hop into a little bit of champion forward and kind of your vision behind that as well. But what you just articulated, I think can be correlated to anybody in any realm, right? It's like what Ben just said is like Ben essentially walked the path, accomplished everything that you could possibly accomplish baseball wise. And what he's saying is that, again, those accomplishments, when you get there, are not enough. It's not enough to get the contract. It's not enough to go to make it to the big leagues. It's not enough to go to all-star games, to win multiple World Series. Like, those things are not enough. And so again, having a deeper purpose and a deeper identity that goes beyond attainment, achievement, success is it's it's imperative to a balanced life, as we talk about. And so this is one of the reasons why too I've been so impassioned by the work that we're doing, because I think that having a voice like yours that is able to have stood on top of the mountain and still say that, like, it and not that you ever thought that that was going to fulfill you, but you're able to have the credibility to say that that hasn't been enough to fulfill you, to be the end all be all, has been so has been so fun, because I think what that does is that provides a real important voice into coaches, caretakers, and competitors, the three kind of demographics that we serve, to really help them through their, endeavoring. So that's a long-winded, again, explanation, but I'd love for you to talk to us to a little bit more about the passion that you have towards mental health, as well as the work that we're doing with Champion Forward, kind of moving forward, and what kind of your story has kind of lent itself to in this kind of new endeavor.
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the things I always loved about sports and achievers, because I am one, I like to go after something. Just because it's a sports activity that doesn't have eternal implications doesn't mean I don't love it. And I think that our culture is definitely in on that idea. It's like they love the idea of sports. They get locked in with sports, right? And I'm all for achievers. Go after your dream. Go achieve great things, things that have never been done before. I think it's so amazing. I've always said from the beginning of starting the organization, we're not trying to pull people away from that dream. We want to help them thrive in the midst of their performance on and off the field. And one of the things that comes with the performing on a regular basis, pushing, 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 pushing for more, is there's stress. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with it. There's a performance pressure, especially when you're doing it in front of people. And at some level, it's really easy to lose yourself in that. And I had a couple of experiences in my career where I really lost myself. I lost the sense of identity. Why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? My motivations were gone. And one of them came from really struggling and not doing well early in my career. And the other time came from doing amazingly in my career and getting all these things handed to me and then going, well, so what? What now? Right. And I dealt with a couple of mental health moments that were challenges for me, that I didn't see. Where's the help here? Where's the skill? How do I translate the mental skills I know how to do to perform on the field to transition to that side of me that's just Ben, that doesn't need to be Ben Zobrist, number 18 for the Chicago Cubs or something like that. I had to figure out, how do you transition from working hard and being this role that they have you at work and being amazing and fulfilling your duty, and then being dad at home or being husband or being, community activist, or all these different roles. But is it ever okay to just be Ben and just be okay not performing and doing everything that everybody's asking of you? And I think that led me to, wow, I really want to help athletes, not just athletes, but their families, their caretakers, the coaches that are coaching these young athletes. How do we how do we do proper self-awareness, proper balance, and proper connection while we're experiencing these high performance atmospheres? Right? Because we're seeing young people at a really alarming clip dealing with mental health issues, not just anxiety and depression, but worse, you know, uh, troubles in the mental health realm. And we're not a mental health organization, as you know, but we are giving people some of the skills that are going to benefit their mental health as they're experiencing these high performing atmospheres. So that's really where the passion came in to pursue this nonprofit organization. And as I explain that to guys like you, people like Mary Grace Elliott, Kat Banks, some of the, even my sister, John Harrison, Brad Stinson, Drew Sutton, some of my best friends and people that are already in my life. They're like, how do we help? What can we do to make sure that we do better for our young people that are trying to do this? And we're all parents now trying to parent our kids through these scenarios. And yet, as well as I do, like it's a challenge for the coaches and parents just as much as it is for the competitors. So that's where all that came out of.
Yeah, I love it. Well, in some cases too, on the coaches and caretakers, sometimes more so, I would say, because from an athletic perspective, when you're when you're growing up, the environment and what's caught and received from a competitor is from a coach and a caretaker. Like that's where it
Oh, yeah.
comes. And so how can how can the environments be set up in such a way um, to foster a level of vulnerability where it's okay to not necessarily always have to be okay. One of the things that you mentioned, and again, you played at a far higher level than I did, but I think that as people reach a level of success in whatever realm that they're in, there's a loneliness that exists there because it is hard to again disassociate what you do from who you are. And everybody at the end of the day, all they want to do is be known, loved, and cared for like truly, genuinely who they are. And when it's hard to strip those two things away, it is a real lonely place.
Yeah. We're not used to anything unconditional, right?
Right.
We don't even know what that feels like because at an early age, like, you naturally are codependent with your parents. That's just normal. And so if your parents are upset at you because you didn't do this or didn't do that or whatever, well, okay, well, I guess I got to perform for them to really love me. They can tell you that they love you till they're blue in the face, but you're still going to catch a little bit of that. Oh, I gotta be a good kid or else they may not love. Until you actually screw something up really badly and you see them give you unconditional love, you don't really understand that, right? Well, in a work environment, we jump into this work environment, and what we know is that if I don't perform at work, if I don't perform on the team, if I don't perform, I lose my position and I lose my opportunities in the future. I may, if I'm a professional, also just lose my paycheck completely, right? And so if you abide in that performance atmosphere long enough, it does a number on your psyche. And it's hard to actually know that you can not do anything and somebody's still going to love you. Somebody's still going to see your value as a human being outside of being a hero on the field. And that's what I think our organization is trying to help people understand. You are valuable no matter what you do on the field. Let us help you thrive as you're pursuing that, not only as a hero, but as a human being. And those relationships, fostering a sense of, hey, I'm a caretaker or I'm a coach. I'm trying to support you. So, yes, I'm going to give you keys to try to be better because you want to be better. How can we help you win more? But at the same time, when you're losing, when you're injured, when you're feeling broken and you can't get it right, we love you just as much. Right. And you're not alone. We're all dealing with the same sense of challenges here as we're pursuing great goals and dreams.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm biased, but it's such good work and it's such important work because, again, at the end of the day, we do want to be known, loved, and cared for. But I think, again, people's deepest fear is that they would be truly known and then unloved. And so, to your
Oh yeah.
point of like when the when the success or the positive performance is stripped away, it's like, yeah, am I still going to be loved and accepted for who I am? And I think for a high achiever, regardless of whether it's an athlete, business owner, entrepreneur, philanthropist, community activist, whatever, I think that there's a level of fear that surrounds that concept.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talk about emotions a lot. That's a lot of what we're trying to help people build is the level of emotional intelligence and empathy around someone else's challenges and struggles, not just our own. Right. Because we can understand our own struggles and challenges, and we may try to do an avoidance job there for only so long. But when it comes to other people, it's easy for us to judge and figure out where they need to be better, instead of just sit with them in it. Right. Or we're trying to fix them, make sure that they don't make that mistake again. And I'll tell you, one of the most healthy things to be able to do if you're a coach or a caretaker is not try to fix what's happening at that very moment. Literally just be okay being there with them. Say, I get it. I understand this is hard. I'm with you. And you don't have to get this figured out all overnight, and I think that's one of so our jobs are to create safe places for these human moments to happen. Now we know that on the athletic level or on the job level, at the end of the day, you got to get the job done, or you're going to lose, or the team's going to lose. We need you to be a hero for the team in this moment. But when it's over, when the moment's over, whether you won or lost for the team, is it okay to be human And is it okay to just be okay, like you said, not being okay? Like we don't have it all figured out yet. We're in a growth and a development mode on a lifetime basis. No one has ever arrived. I don't care if it's a 80-year-old who's the greatest, most wise sage in the world. If they're truly wise, they're humble enough to admit they don't have it all figured out and they're still learning and growing, right?
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. And that's actually, it's a really good segue. You talk about emotions. And one of the things that I believe, and I've, shared this with you a little bit. Um, I believe that fear is the enemy. And that's one of the things that I believe kind of and try to ingrain here into this podcast. And I think there's two different kinds of fear. I think there's the fear that drives people to go and achieve and grow and things. And I think, that can be positive, but the fear that I'm specifically talking about is the negative fear inside that takes our mind or eye off the ball of whatever we're endeavoring towards, whatever our purpose or identity really is. And that for me has um, really been to my detriment at different times in my life. So, do you mind sharing what's a fear that Ben Zobrist struggles with that takes his mind or eye off the ball?
Oh yeah. I definitely have a fear of definitely letting people down in my life. I have a fear of not probably it's probably of missing out in a lot of ways. So part of one of my issues is trying to say I say yes too much to things and at the expense of, oh shoot, now I don't have time to do this, don't have time to do that. And I'm saying yes so much, and there's not enough of a boundary there at times because I see something really cool that it could be really fun, positive. But you know what? Whenever you're saying yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else, right? And you can only do so much. And in the emotions work, we talk about healthy shame. A lot of people don't like the word shame. They don't like the word fear. I do think there's a level of healthy fear and healthy shame. You mentioned the healthy fear that keeps you in boundaries. That keeps you motivated to stay the course, right? Like don't go so far out of the lane that you're missing the mark, right? There's a healthy fear of missing the mark that keeps you motivated and directionally. But then the toxic side just makes you freeze. You either run away or you freeze, or there's just something bad that happens. And I think healthy shame would say, hey, Ben, you can't be all things to all people. Therefore, you have to choose wisely and you have to say yes to the things you really need to say yes to and no. And you know what? When you say no, it's hard to say no because then you're afraid of what are these people going to think of me if I can't come through for them, if I can't say yes to the thing, or they've been really nice to me. Maybe they'll stop inviting me and I'll miss out on this fun thing next time. And at a certain level, those fears of other people and the way that they think of us are holding us back from staying focused and direct to where we need to be headed and the things that we're really called to, right? So that's the way that fear often trips me up and keeps me, distracted. And, I probably have a somewhat normal baseball player level of ADD in my system too, squirrel, and I'm just off to the next thing. So I always need help. That's what I talk about. That's a big part of accountability, right? You need other people in your life that when you're getting distracted over here, they're like, hey, remember, this is where you want to be heading.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think, yeah, it's another thing that I believe wholeheartedly. And I think some of it comes from my faith and some of it comes from, again, our sports background. But I believe that we're better together. Again, we can accomplish a good amount alone, but you can accomplish more together. And I think to your point, it's like we're not capable as human beings or strong enough to always be on the right path in the right direction. We're just not.
Right.
And it does
Right.
require, I think, people around us to help continue to point us in the right direction, especially again when we're starting to stray or deviate, um, or what have you.
100%. Yeah. I know I need it. And that's part of why we have a board for Champion Forward is like, we need people that have done this that can basically tell us, hey, we think this is good. Maybe tweak this, tweak that. There's nobody that ever accomplishes great goals or great visions without a large group of people that are supporting them along the way, right? So a lot of people think, well, I am not this big achiever. I just like along for the ride, or somebody else is running the show and I'm just working for the man and all this. It's easy to kind of be like, well, I'm just not, I'm never going to be an MVP of anything. Right. And what I would say is you have to do you. You have to be who you are called to be. And some people are uniquely gifted to be more of a support system than an achiever, visionary out there leading the pack, and guess what? You can thrive in that role and feel extremely fulfilled in that role, but you have to connect the overall vision to who you are and what you're for. It's like, like Grayson, you're passionate about young athletes, right? I know that you're already doing some lessons and you want to see, how some of these young athletes can develop, and you can develop them in so many ways. You have this gifting, but the way you do it has to be uniquely you. And you know what? You don't have time to be working and championing forward every day, but you have a little bit of time to be, working every, maybe a couple hours a week and looking at something for us, or over the course of a month, checking some numbers for us and helping us in that way. And in that way, you're connected to our overall vision and a unique and important part of making that vision happen. Right. So then we all get to share in the benefit of seeing a young competitor, a caretaker, or a coach catch that vision and do it in a better, healthier, more of a better experience than maybe we had at times when we were growing up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. 100%. 100%. So as we kind of wrap up here, I'd love to close with a couple questions. One kind of more serious, one a little bit more lighthearted and fun. Um, as you kind of look back on, I'd say the last 15 years of your life, um, what's one thing that you know now that you wish you knew, say, coming out of DBU into professional baseball that would have saved you a lot of headache and heartache?
Oh, I wish I knew. I wish I knew how to sit in tension and not try to fix it. Slow down enough to spend some time in solitude and sit with it and not have to fix it right now. I think I was really in a rush to fix things really fast. And I'm not saying that there's not a time to grind and hustle, because you have to hustle if you're going to be good at anything. If you're going to be one of the best at anything, you got to hustle. But if you don't take the time to rest and recover and spend enough time in the quiet when it feels uncomfortably quiet, you can't hear what you really need. And I think I wish I would have known that. I wish I would have had somebody helping me figure that out at a younger level. And I think that to a certain degree, because I didn't do that well, that's what led me into depression twice during my career. Because I was so gung ho and hard going after my goals that I didn't take enough time to actually stop, celebrate, stop, rest, stop, just connect, become more self aware. Wish I would have done that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important. And, again, I think a lot of people, it's important to know that what you're saying there too, it's some of it's outside, but a lot of it's inside too, you know, that it's
Mhm.
easy to think about, slowing down schedule, but you're not just talking about schedule. You're also talking about being present internally. And sometimes in moments of rest, when to your point, it does feel uncomfortable. It's like, it does feel uncomfortable to clear our schedule, but sometimes it also feels uncomfortable again internally to just sit and listen. Right. And like, that's the hard work that I don't think a lot of people often are willing to lean into.
No, no, you're right. And it's not in our nature, especially if you're an achiever. It's not in really our nature as competitors. Anybody that's competitive, not in your nature, because if you're not doing it, guess who? Guess what? Somebody's passing you up. That's what we
Somebody
always
else
heard,
is.
right? Like, what if our greatest competition is not against someone else? What if our greatest competition is learning how to thrive in who we are supposed to be? What if the greatest competition is against ourselves and the unhealthy version of ourselves versus the healthy, thriving version of self? Because my belief is you can be unhealthy and maybe succeed on an external level, but you're not succeeding on an internal level if you're unhealthy. You got to find a level of quality connection to self, and I would argue God at a level before you can do great healthy connection outside yourself with your environment and people around
Yeah, 100%. I think, yeah, it's important, yeah, to be focused on yourself. I think that that's the case, again, personally. I think it's the case vocationally. I think it's the case relationally. I think all around, it's it's easier to point the finger, right? As opposed to pointing it back at yourself or looking internally. Oftentimes that's the most uncomfortable, but I think it is the place where the most fruit is seen as well.
Yeah. And I always like to look at it in a hopeful way. No matter where you think you are right now, it's not about that at all. It's about, are you in a growth mode? Are you in a growth mindset? Because growth mindset says you're never going to fully arrive there, but also there's always a new way to grow around the corner. If you feel like you're stagnant and stuck, all you need is continue to grow and become more aware and continue to learn and ask other people in your life for more information and be curious. The more curious you are, the more you have a chance to grow in new ways than you've never grown.
100%. Spot on. So, as a final bookend question, this is not a financial podcast, but you know that I'm a finance guy. So, I
Yes.
have to sprinkle in a little bit of finance here as we wrap up
Oh
our time
boy.
today.
I'm
So,
really glad we haven't talked much about this because I stink in this room.
so my question is, when you were a young kid, do you remember the first thing that you ever saved for?
Ooh, first thing I ever saved. See, that was part of my problem is I didn't do much saving at all. Yeah, didn't do a lot of that. Shoot, let me think. I probably, if I saved for anything, um, it would have been baseball equipment. It
Yeah.
would have been some sort of, or a pair of Jordans. Like, I love baseball and basketball primarily. So it would have been the special cleats, or, it's like, okay, I'm looking on eBay and I know my birthday's coming up. So if I just, if I earn a little bit of money mowing lawns, combined with birthday money, maybe I can get these sweet Jordans or these sweet baseball cleats, you know?
Parlay.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
occasionally my parents would be like, all right, we'll throw in half, like if that's what you want to get kind of thing. So they were always really good about helping either pay for those or make it a special thing that I got on a birthday or Christmas thing.
I love it. No, I was probably the same way. And it's interesting that, and I know you'll agree with this. I think specifically related to like baseball equipment and gear, as you continue to move up the ladder, you become so desensitized to, I mean, I remember like my largest Christmas gifts were my new bat or my new cleats or my new
Oh
baseball
yeah.
glove or whatever. And you get to college and professional baseball, and I mean, you have more of that stuff than you would ever be able to use. And it's just, it's funny the way that the tides turn there.
I agree. And I'll say this though, I'm also somewhat during my career, I kept a lot of things as almost like a pack rat because I'm like, wait, well, I might need this later. I might need this later. So I have like all these extra pairs of cleats that I never used because I didn't need them. And they were like in storage now. And when am I going to wear a pair of metal cleats now, Grayson? Like, where does it apply? So what I've ended up doing is like, you know what? If there's a charity event or somebody like needs something signed, I can sign it, and those can be given away or something at some level. So maybe there's still a purpose to those things, but you're right. Like they just pile up, and you're like, well, I guess I don't really need this anymore.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Well, Ben, this has been awesome this afternoon. Obviously, it's fun to connect with and hang with a friend, but also, chat a little bit about your story. I appreciate your openness and honesty and transparency and wisdom, really. And more than that, just your friendship means a lot to me. And I appreciate your time this afternoon. So thanks for coming on the pursuit.